So let's start, guys. Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome to OWASP DKD chapter. Today's talk will be on Pentesting API Top 10. So let me introduce to our today's speaker, who is Tushar Kulkarni. He is an security research engineer at Holm Security. He also leads and manages the OWASP Nagpur chapter. He has given talks and trainings at various security conferences such as OWASP, AppSec Days, and Black Hat Europe. So that's all from my side. Tushar sir, over to you.
Thank you, thank you. You can call me Tushar, by the way. No, sir. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and really thanks for what you have been doing, Pramod and Anubhav, both of you. Uh, very few of very few people know that OWASP also has student chapters, and what these guys have done till now, like, and they'll continue to do so, I hope. They have created this OWASP DKT student chapter, which has been doing very great. They have been organizing a lot of, AppSec sessions for the students and for the outsiders. So really thankful to you for inviting me. So today's talk is about Pentesting API Top 10. You all might have heard about OWASP Top 10, but a few might have heard of OWASP API Top 10. So OWASP, being a non-profit organization, also has some projects, chapters, and a lot of initiatives. So one of it is OWASP Top 10, and there are several others like OWASP API Top 10, OWASP Mobile Top 10. API Top 10 focuses around the top 10 vulnerabilities or top 10 categories that you may come across in APIs. So this can be a REST, SOAP, even native APIs, anything. So we'll try to have a look at how how we pen test top 10 categories or identify top 10 categories in API vulnerabilities. So these guys introduced about me. It's everything there in the slide. I manage OWASP Nagpur chapter. I've also spoken at conferences like Black Hat, HITB, OWASP AppSec Days, ATHAC, uh, and a lot. I work as a security research engineer at Home Security. Uh, I like to play CTF in my free times. I have also contributed to a few CTF helped in organizing a few CTFs, such as Winja, etc. Winja is, by the way, uh, an initiative by Nelcon which helps, which encourages women in security. So we will also, try to look at one example from Winja CTF that I had contributed. So like it will be a bit fun. I'd also like to talk about VAPI. VAPI is an open source lab platform where you can learn about API security, which I have developed and everybody can contribute to. It is open source. Uh, Open source meaning you can fork it, you can make your own changes, you can try to submit a pull request. Everything is welcome. We will try to learn more about what VAPI is in the later stage. Uh, the tech stack that I have used for VAPI is Laravel and MySQL, because of course Laravel is a framework based on PHP, and PHP I think is a good language to articulate vulnerabilities. You might have seen, if you are very an avid CTF player, you might have seen that you come across a lot of CTF challenges that have a PHP script. That is because of the ease of programming that this language provides, and you can very easily articulate vulnerabilities. You don't have to take much effort into recreating or developing that scenario where the vulnerability occurs. So you can easily showcase this is how the vulnerability is working. That's why a lot of people use PHP. So though it is a very old language, or it is a very not so much used language these days, but it can help uh, help you learn about vulnerabilities. And MySQL, of course, as a database, because it goes well with PHP. We have also Dockerized this whole process, so you don't really have to take care of setting this up manually, like setting up a separate MySQL service and then taking a Laravel server into account and then connect them both. You can just run a single Docker Compose Up command and you are ready to go. Installation, like I said, we have a Docker way and a manual way. Manual is when you are very good at setting up services individually and you are confident enough that you can connect these both services, that is the Laravel server with the MySQL. So if you are comfortable with that, you can go with the manual approach, or else you can go with the Docker approach. You can just git clone the repository of VAPI and just run this command docker compose upd, and that's all. Your lab instance will be up and running and you can try and attack it. Tools required for API pen testing: Postman for VAPI, of course, but yeah, and MITM proxies such as OWASP, ZAP, or Burp Suite. So in VAPI, what we provide is a Postman collection and an environment which lists all the API calls that are there or that you can use and attack. And yeah, so that's that. Uh, and for intercepting those API calls or HTTP requests, you can use Burp Suite to carry out advanced attacks such as maybe intruder or any extension that can help you carry out the attack. So yeah, that's that. So Postman is only, I have written here only for VAPI because that's what I am providing. But there are several other tools that are used in API pen testing as well, such as SOAP UI, JMeter, and whatnot. Postman provides a lot of functionalities. It's a very comprehensive tool. That's why we have chosen that. But yeah, there are a lot of, and you can explore. Uh, this is a very, very, very important slide of this uh, topic or the talk, which is OWASP API Top 10 project, of course, on which the VAPI lab is based on. And this is one of the OWASP's one of the most important projects, that is OWASP API Top 10, which lists out the top 10 vulnerabilities occurring in APIs. So just like OWASP Top 10, there is OWASP API Top 10. You can see the vulnerabilities like broken object level authorization, function level authorization, injection, etc. The whole documentation is given at this URL. And yeah, a shout out to these guys for releasing this project to the community. So its first version came in 2019, and I'm not sure when a change or an update would be made, but this is the current top 10 listed categories of OWASP API top 10, which you can check out, by the way. So we come to the first, that is broken object level authorization. So you will come across this term very frequently when I'll be talking about APIs, that is object. In APIs, an object is an entity, or like maybe, so in terms where sorry, so in databases we have an entity or a person or an object or a thing as a row in DBMS. So in APIs you can see that you can say that the person or the entity can be called as an object, because when you create or store some data, you store it as a form of object. So when a broken object level authorization occurs, it is when a data is being a data from another object is being read, deleted, or updated, or tampered, whatever. So it can be a CRUD operation. So here you can see the diagram explains very well. It says get my document, which number is 1000 please. So 1000 is just a object ID, so 1000 is a document. And then the attacker again says get the document which the number is 1002. So another object's data is being read, which clearly describes the vulnerability that a broken object level authorization is being done or is allowed. So This is very simple to test. You can just also occurs as a part of web application vulnerabilities, where it is also called as IDOR, insecure direct object reference, where you change a user's ID or some unique ID that you have got and change it with some random, and you try to check if you are able to read, update, or delete another user's data. So this is a very similar thing. Only thing is that these kind of vulnerabilities, these occur a lot in APIs as compared to traditional web application vulnerabilities. We will talk why it happens later on, but yeah, this is the first one. So the second one is broken user authentication. It is also a bit similar to uh, I think OWASP top 10 A3. So here it is API 2. When your API allows credential stuffing, such as an attacker gets hold of a dump. So let's say an attacker gets hold of Snapchat's 7 GB, 10 GB dump, and he tries to attack the Snapchat API with trying each combination of username and password, and see if which of them are working. So that's what credential stuffing is. We have a great exercise in VAPI related to this. Then weak password policies. When a user is creating an account, the password that is to be set has to have some password policies. So there are certain standards again mentioned by some of the OWASP, some of the projects by OWASP, such as I think OWASP ASVS is there, Application Security Verification Standard, which lets you check the level of security that your application has or should have. So you can refer such documents from OWASP. So yeah, your API should have a good password policy that forces, or let's say advises user to set a good password. Then sensitive data in URL, uh, anything from session IDs or something in the URL. Weak encryption, misconfigured tokens, not validating tokens properly. And when I say like misconfigured tokens, weak encryption, it's not mutually exclusive. There are certain vulnerabilities that can fall under two categories at once. So this is you know from my point of view, of course, this is my opinion. This is a misconception that some of the people out there have or still follow, that OWASP top 10 or OWASP API top 10 are the 10 vulnerabilities that we have to check for. So first is, these are only categories according to me. You cannot say that these are vulnerabilities. There's a very much big difference between a vulnerability and a category, and some of these may be an unique vulnerability, let's say such as injection, but this can be a category as well. So that's why we are seeing here uh, multiple list here, that if one of these is even present in the API, it can be considered as a broken user authentication. So these are not just vulnerabilities or categories, can be both. It's not unique. And yeah, there can be a world beyond this top 10 categories. There can be an 11, 12, 13, whatnot. So this is just for reference, or for ease of use, or for classification of vulnerabilities, which you can refer. The third one is excessive data exposure. So APIs are sorry, just a second. Yeah, so APIs act as a hand, or an intermediary between the front end and the back end. So previously, what used to happen was, there was only a client and there was only a server. When APIs came, it became like a three-tier architecture, where there is a front end, and there is a API, and there's a backend. And API allows both of these front end and backend to communicate with each other. So what happens is when you try to retrieve the data from backend and display it in a nice way in the front end, uh, where you see, you don't have to refresh, it just fetches the data and displays it in a very nice way. So some of you who are maybe, maybe in the final year of their projects, or developing some web application, you might have used something like Angular or Bootstrap, or what else. I'm not sure, very I don't know much of the front end technologies, I have not worked much. But yeah, there are certain front end technologies that make a synchronous call to the backend and then get the data and show it in a very nice way on the front end. So this is a very important category, I would say, where you take the whole data from the backend, but only you only require only some part of it. So what happens is when you are taking the whole data, the response comes and you filter it out on the front end, which is a very bad practice. uh Here, like it's shown, select star from table. What if the star means everything, every column has to be sent to the front end? What if it contains the password as well? Maybe the hash value, but that's a sensitive, right? So in excessive data exposure, what we have to do is we have to, in order to prevent such vulnerabilities from happening, we must make sure that we only take, or we only request data from backend what is necessary and not more than that. So let's say you want to display a user, like you display a list of users, right? What do you need? You only need a name and perhaps maybe an ID. You don't need anything else. If you need, you can add maybe one more column here. So you should only request and give data whichever is necessary to the front end. You should not give the whole of data, right? So yeah, you can always check out exercises or try it out on your own on the VAPI lab. It's a good lab, I would say. But yeah, there are other labs available as well, but again, I'll be going through each of the category, which will help you get familiarized with these categories. Now, coming to the fourth one, API 4, that is lack of resources and rate limiting. Uh, there is a very famous incident around this vulnerability. An API 4 plus API 9. API 9 is improper assets management. I would just like to recall, or tell the story again. It was a very good bug found in Facebook, where Facebook, so it was like 4 or 5 years back, where Facebook used to send, a 4-digit OTP to your mobile phone and you can reset your password. Now, the attacker found a way to, maybe brute force this 4-digit, because there was, it was possible, right? A 4-digit OTP can be brute force very easily. But the thing is, Facebook.com did not allow this to happen. But what attacker did is, he went to beta.facebook.com, which is the exact copy or the beta version of Facebook, and which has, the same data as that of the production. So what happened is, on beta.facebook.com, there was no rate limiting at all implemented. So this allowed the attacker to, reset anyone's Facebook password. So the point is, here he combined like two approaches. One is he identified a brute force attack, a possible brute force attack, and he also identified a domain which did not have a rate limiting implemented to it. So this is what essentially API 4 is: lack of resources and rate limiting. An API should have a rate limit implemented to it. uh, uh, Anyone cannot consume APIs or the API endpoint straight away, 400, 500 times or 600. There has to be a limit set by you as a developer, because it can lead to, brute force attacks, or mm, what else? It increases, or it increases the load or decreases the performance of your API. So there has to be, some resource and rate limiting implemented. API 5, which is broken function level authorization. The first one that you saw was broken object level authorization. Object being the entity that you save, or the person or the thing that you save in a database when the object is getting created. Function level authorization, function you can say like an action, or and yeah, basically an action that is being performed by the object. So broken function level authorization is very easy. You are a user, you are able to, perform an action that your user is not supposed to. In simple terms, you are a user and you are allowed to perform an action that the admin is allowed to. So let's say as a user, you can only view your information, but as an admin, you can view all users' information. So this can be a bit easy to understand example where uh, in the diagram you can see get API uses my financial info, where there is a endpoint that says get API admin all info, where you are able to perform an action that is only limited to admin. So that vulnerability would be called as a broken function level authorization. Mass assignment, API 6. This is one of my favorite categories, where at the time of object creation, what what developers do is so in real time scenarios or real case scenarios, what happens is there is a lot of data coming in from user. So what sometimes developer do is they create an object directly from the user's data as it is. Like there might be some function call involved that says to JSON and just pass it in the object creation function. So what they essentially do is so they take the whole table or the object columns or object parameters. They save it in front end, and when the front end makes a request to create the object, those parameters are passed, and the developer only has to do something like request dot to JSON and just pass it to the object creation method. This would ease the developer's work but lead to vulnerabilities like mass assignment, where an extra parameter which the attacker knows is being added explicitly by the attacker in the request. So we will also look at this example later in the session. Okay, so let's say the user dot is admin is a flag that is later seen by the user. So next time what user does is they they change this is admin and set it to true explicitly and then send the request. This allows them to override the privileges, become an admin user, and do all sorts of things. Yeah, so there are other properties as well, like permission related properties, process dependent properties, and internal properties, which will allow attacker to tamper with uh, internal parameters such as created time, modified time, etc. API 7, it's a security misconfiguration. The name is very broad. In OWASP top 10 also, we have a security misconfiguration, which is a very broad category. I personally feel anything that I cannot, allow to fit in some category, I can put in security misconfiguration. So, but it can be a lot of things. So again, one of the examples of security misconfiguration is when you have not configured your policies properly. Here, we see there is access control allow origin, which is a CORS policy. CORS, of course, being cross origin resource sharing, which is a set of rules that allow which front end can talk to your API. So allow origin essentially says that this origin only can talk to your API and can display the response in your in their front end. So let's say your API is hosted on, so yeah, let's say you have two domains. You have one as a.com and your API is hosted on b.com, and your front end is a.com. You want to be able to make API calls to b.com, and so you would have to set a CORS policy on b.com that says access control allow origin a.com. So this means that all the requests that come to the API from a.com would be allowed, and would be allowed to fetch the data and display it in the response. So again, on managing multiple front ends, so let's say you have a.com as front end, and you also have c.com as front end. Now your API b.com has to manage two front ends, right? So what essentially developers do as a lazy person is they print out whatever is sent as a part of origin in this access control allow origin header. So when I make a HTTP call from a.com, the origin that is sent is a.com. So if I print whatever is available in origin, here it would be printed as a.com. But what this leads to is a coarse misconfiguration, which would allow attacker to make request from, let's say, a malicious.com to v.com. And this would allow an attacker to exploit authenticated users data, or fetch it, unless there is some API token involved, or protection mechanism involved. So here you can see there is a get request, which can be sensitive victim data, or /me. Host would be vulnerable website, or like I said, malicious website.com. Origin is malicious website.com. The cookies are automatically sent. Now, this would be crafted as a XHR in a coarse exploit and sent to the victim. And when the victim clicks on it, a request would be sent, and the access control allow origin would readily reflect the malicious.coms in access control allow origin, and this would allow attacker to steal the information through, again, some logger server or something. So this is the basic example. I know it's very confusing, but yeah, this is a very basic example, of course. There are other misconfigurations also which you can consider in this category. Yeah. API 8 is injection. It can, like I said, it can be a very broad category. It can be a single vulnerability. Injection itself is a vulnerability and a category as well. So it can be a OS command injection that is there in the API, SQL injection in APIs, XML injection in APIs, LDAP injection, XXE. I think XXE is a different category. Yeah, so all sorts of injection, and it happens because lack of sanitization and protection mechanism are being in place. SQL injection used to be very common in APIs, but I don't think so they are now. But again, there are a lot of other injections. Yeah, server-side template injection. These are something new that are there. Can be in APIs, I think. Yeah. Improper assets management. You have to take care of your assets while maintaining an API. There has to be a version control, a proper version control, where the API versions are like, api.com/v1/me. The endpoint can change to api.com/v2/v1.1. So sometimes what happens is there is a rate limit implemented on v2, but there is not a rate limit implemented on v1. Similarly, what I told about facebook.com, the rate limit was not implemented on beta.facebook.com. So you have to take care of your all the assets. That's like version, then the environment, staging, development, production. You have to take care of these assets. Then you also have to handle PII and PHI, personally identifiable information and personal health information of the people that you are storing the data. So there are certain compliances also that you have to follow around these classification of data. So yeah, you have to do your asset management properly in APIs. uh, then this is a very evergreen and popular category, which I think as a pen tester you can't check yet, or you have to be the developer and the pen tester at the same time to be able to check this. That is insufficient logging and monitoring. That if you don't produce any logs, there is no logging level. uh, Basically monitoring and if logging and monitoring is not present, then it is considered a vulnerability, but you can't check that as a pen tester, you have to check that as a developer. So you have to log information, certainly not sensitive information, but which user logged in at which time. You don't have to log their passwords when they log in. You can just log that user ID, this logged in at this time with a timestamp, and continuously monitor it as well. You don't have to just log, you have to monitor it as well. So something that I mentioned earlier is uh, why we see a lot of broken object level authorization in APIs. That is vulnerabilities in web apps versus vulnerabilities in APIs. XSS, you get to see a lot of XSS in web application. That's because web applications, you can say those are the front end, or those are the scope is also the front end, and XSS is something that happens in the front end, right? You if I give you a API endpoint which reflects the whatever payload you insert, such as XSS payload, and reflects as it is without sanitization, but with the content type application slash JSON, the browser would not render it, and it won't be vulnerable to XSS attack unless the API endpoint is somewhere consumed in the front end and displayed in an unsanitized way. So this is the difference between web apps and vulnerabilities in APIs. So XSS, you can't, it's very hard to find in a plain API endpoint, a cross-site scripting vulnerability, whereas it is very easy to find in web apps. On the opposite side, you find a lot of broken authorization and access control, broken object level authorization, broken function level authorization. You get to see in APIs a lot, because all you are doing is passing an ID, getting the data, again passing an ID, getting the data. So it's very common to find these types of vulnerabilities in APIs. Again, the you might have, as a company or as a tester, or as a security enthusiast, you have used a lot of tools that are there, which test web applications, or DAS tools, we can say. These, I believe, over the time have improved with respect to the web applications rather than web APIs, because testing APIs requires a lot of different context as compared to web applications. In web applications, you simply fire up payloads and get responses, find a pattern, try to see if it is vulnerable, whereas in APIs you have to set up a lot of things, and I believe manually we do it in a very nice way as compared to scanning tools, at least for now. Maybe in the future the engines would approve where you have to upload an API documentation, such as a Postman project or a soap file, to where the tool is able to test out the API just by providing these documentation of APIs. So for now, I don't think so it's like it's very easy for these tools to test APIs. But yeah, that's the difference again between web app testing and APIs. uh Very different from the previous slide. The project roadmap, of course, is related to the VAPI tool, which I'm going to show you. uh this is something that I plan to do and have been like procrastinating since a lot of time, and I've been showing and demonstrating the tool in a lot of conferences and showing this same slide over there. But yeah, I promise that this would be there in some time in the future. That is acknowledgement for completion of challenges, like a dashboard thing, where if you complete the whole challenge, or all the 10 challenges that are there in the VAPI, you get some kind of pop-up saying congratulations or something, which you can of course proudly share with your friends on social media. So this is something that I want to achieve. which also you can help in doing it. I'll share the GitHub link shortly. I also see this tool or the lab being a crowdsourced playground for API security challenges. So just like we have Juice Shop, OWASP Juice Shop for web application security challenges, maybe people can use VAPI for API security challenges. I know it's a very uh, it's a bit long dream, but yeah, I dream so. So yeah, these are the 2 points that I would like to mention as a project roadmap. So yeah, we'll look at a demo first from VPI and then from one of the Vinja challenges that I had done. So I will just uh, share just a second. I hope my screen is visible. Uh,
Yes, yes, it's visible.
yeah, thank you. Okay. So this is my server on which I have hosted my VAPI instance. I can go to VAPI directory, docker compose. I don't know if there's a command called status. Okay, there is no. Okay, there is a docker compose ps, right? PS. Yeah, so we have the VAPI instances running from this directory. I am in the VAPI directory. When you clone my project, you'll get something like this. And you can simply go in the directory and run docker compose upd command, which will docker compose, of course, for composing the whole project, up for starting the service, and -d for it being a daemon process and running in foreground, sorry, background. So we can see here the VAPI instance is running. You can again check it by, just visiting it like old school, just visiting the URL, and it says Laravel server. So of course it should be running. We also have a documentation at /VAPI endpoint, which will list out all the categories, like what you have to send, what data you have to send. There is a Postman collection available in the resources folder, which you can import in the Postman tool. So once you import the Postman project and the environment, it will look like this, like what you are seeing on my screen. So environment is something that maintains the variables, or yeah, so essentially variables only that are needed for the API to work properly. And these variables where you have to set your host, initial value was this, but I changed it to rootest.vapi.com, of course, because on that instance, on that URL, my instance is running. Then these are the challenges. You get to create a user. You can go to body. You can insert your username, name, course, password. Once the user is created, uh, just a second. Once the user is created, a test would be run, which would grab the response from the Postman and set the API token automatically. So when you create the user and then go to get user details, you don't have to set this API1 ID. It will be automatically set in the environment here, and then you can, uh, try and tamper with the request in order to solve the challenge. It will. So these Postman scripts is what is good about Postman. You can run a script and it will set the token automatically. We'll look at the API 6 example where it, allows us to create a user. API 6 is, I'll remind, it's a mass assignment vulnerability. So I'll create a user, something like that has a name to Kulkarni. Then the username should be, I've used up a lot of root task, so I can say something like 7. I have used a lot. And we can set a password like QWERTY and send the request. Okay, I have my burp suite connected here as well. So the intercept is on. How to set up the burp suite? You launch the burp suite, you go to the Postman settings, you go to the proxy. Here you have add a custom proxy configuration. You tick the both protocols, you set the proxy server and the port, and on that your Postman burp suite is running. So you set the same IP and port essentially. And yeah, that's how you set the proxy. You can add other settings, those are helpful. uh, so yeah, we sent the request and we got the response. So our name is the name of the user that we created is Tushar Kulkarni. The username is roottask7, ID is 6. Now when we want to get the user, we can simply send the request and we will get the details. So the details that we get for the user that we have created is ID, name, username, and credit. So credit is 0, right? When we sent this request, the API token or the authentication token was automatically set. You can see here in the environment value. That is because when we sent a create user request, a test was run which grabbed the uh, or created a token that is required for the next request. So in headers we have API 6 auth, which is automatically sent in the next request. So here we have credit 0, right? Like I said, sometimes developers are very lazy. They just take whole of the data and assign it to the object that they are creating. And sometimes the some of the parameters are default. So let's say for anyone creating a new account, the default credit value would be 0, or for an e-commerce website, the default wallet value would be 0. Now what we'll do is we'll try to add the credit explicitly and set it to maybe 1000 and see if it works. Now for another user to be created, we'll have to make sure that the username is unique from what we created the last. So instead of roottask7, we will give roottask8 and see if it creates this. So yeah, we created our user, the ID is 7. Now we'll try to get the user details that we created. So we explicitly provided our credit value, like we want the credit or the default credit value to be 1000. And since the developer was very lazy, which is me, I took all of the parameters and simply just assigned and created an object, which allowed the user or the attacker to, claim free money or free products. And since like I have solved this challenge or understood what it meant, I've also got a flag. So this gives me a sense of accomplishment that I have got a flag and I have solved this challenge or exercise, and I have understood what mass assignment vulnerability is. So this is what essentially the idea around VAPI is. It allows you to explore some challenges. In API 3 we have a mobile application which you can install on your phone and then you have to exploit it. So in a similar way, in API 2 we have a data provided. So there are a lot of fun activities here that you can check. if you have just started out in API security. It is of course not for someone who is, an expert or intermediate in API security. If you have just started, it is a very great platform for you. That's all I would say. uh, Now, we will go to Burp Suite and try out the other challenge that I have. I think it's running on port 9000. So I'll open the browser that is by default embedded in Burp Suite, which is already configured with Burp Suite. Why is it not opening? Okay, it opened. So this is the browser that comes with Burp Suite. I'll go roottask.vpi.com /9000. Oh, I opened it twice. So this is a challenge that I had contributed for Ninja CTF. It has a part where the authentication or authorization mechanism is somewhat related to APIs, which is called JWT. I don't know if you have heard of it. You might have heard of it if you have, tested a lot of APIs or applications. JWT essentially stands for JSON Web Token, which has three parts: header, payload, and signature. And the beauty of it is the server does not have to store anything. Everything is stored within the JWT token. So the server doesn't really have to, take care of storing all the necessary, or uh, keep remembering when the session will expire. Everything is stored within the JWT token, and it cannot be tampered by the user unless there is some misconfiguration. So we'll have a look at it. We'll create a user, then email. Okay, again password required. We'll register. So it says user registered. We can go to Burp Suite and check if we were able to register it. And yeah, we have registered the user. Now we'll go to login. It says email and password that we have to give. It says sorry, no treat for you. There is also some emojis. But first, let us have a look at, okay, so I already have an extension called Joseph installed on my Burp Suite, which flags the request in blue color if a JWT token occurs. So what I will do is, so this is what a JWT token looks like, starting with EY being, I think, the base 64 encoding for the brackets. Then we'll try to copy it and send to decoder and decode as base 64 text. So it says type JWT ALGHS 256 ISS issuer is CTF.winja. Role is user. So this is something interesting, right? Role is user. What if we, change it to admin? We might be able to, get hold of what admin can see or cannot see. IIT is some issued at, it's a Unix timestamp for when the token was issued and when it expires. This garbage in the end that you see, it's encrypted because it protects the integrity of the token. So what we will do is we will send this to repeater and try to remove the, or to automate the process for what I am doing. I can simply send it to Joseph, and Joseph would check if ALG none, that is a signature exclusion attack, would work. So I'll try an attack, and it says 200 for everything. Okay, I had created the challenge that way. but I think it should work. So we can verify manually. We can take the part till here, go to the decoder and change the ALG to none. And then again encode it as base 64. We'll skip the equal to because equal to is not a part of, it's not used as a part of JWT, the trailing one. And I think it still works. It says sorry, no treat for you. Now that we have changed the algorithm to none, and if it's still working, it is not giving us any error, that means it should essentially work. So if we remove the last part, that is the trailing part, it should still give us the original response. So it is indeed working. Even though we have removed the signature, we are able to get what the original user was allowed to get. Now comes the fun part. We will try to modify the payload. So signature is something that is calculated, header plus payload, and then some secret key that is symmetric or asymmetric, and then the signature is calculated. But now there is no signature. That means this would allow us to tamper with the payload. And since the payload has a parameter called admin, we can essentially forge it, I guess. So okay, it says 471 35471. First, I think it was not decoded properly. So we'll have to match the length of Unix timestamp that is here. So it would be like 164,354, 354, 1234. Okay, 1234. So this means we have to add one more here, and then a double quote, and then a curly brace, because it starts with curly brace and ends with curly brace. Now it says role as user. We can change it to admin. Now again, we'll encode it as base 64. We will take this part, add it to repeater, and send it. Oh, it says error, but why? I think we missed. Oh, we don't need to add the double quote because it's an integer, not a string. So this also matters a lot. The exp is though a string. The Unix timestamp, it's not a string. It's an integer to be checked with. So we'll take this again, paste it. I hope our session is active. Okay, it's JWT, right? So we got the flag. It says flag, just win this, all I want. And I think it's a half flag. So we will copy it somewhere. Okay, at this point, I think I should only use Notepad. So we got one part of our flag. The other part, I think, lies here, which is a emoji cipher. I don't know if it will work. Emoji cipher. Which one of his? Okay, I'm not sure which one of it is. No, I don't have the key. I don't remember exactly what I had used. I think this is the one. Is it working? No. Crunch. You know what? I'll just go to GitHub. Emojicipher.com. Okay. Emojicipher. Oh, this is funny. I think the the developer just uh the domain expired. So essentially I was not using the proper, the traditional emoji cipher, but just, a third party service which may be indexed or gave out random ciphertext. So it was not exactly, but yeah, the rest of the part, it's R tokens, which is, translated with that emoji. So this is the total flag that we get after exploiting that JWT plus the emoji cipher. And this is a small challenge that I had kept in Ninja CTF. So yeah, so even basic than this, such challenges are available in VAPI, and I wish to, expand very much, like add some more challenges in the arena section. So it would be like the top 10 categories would be in these folders, and arena we can have some custom challenges like this, like maybe based on JWT tokens, some other tokens that are vulnerable. So we can have such challenges here. I'm still like in the process of improving it, and suggestions are welcome, stars are welcome, forks are welcome, pull requests are welcome, everything is welcomed. uh we will go back to the slide part. So that was about the demo. We saw a mass assignment and a JWT misconfiguration demo. Now these are the contributors and thanks I would like to give. Like these people, these are the main contributors of the project. Chaitanya helped me with developing an APK for the third challenge. Paulo is actively maintaining the API security project by OWASP, and Mohit, etc. These are some of the links or forums or directories that consider VAPI as a useful resource for learning API security. Also thanks to apisecurity.io and DailySwig, they have mentioned this tool quite a few times in their newsletters and blogs. So thanks to them, it helped me reach a greater or a larger audience. These are some of the references that you can check. API security, how to strengthen your APIs, benefits, etc. How to create your APIs. Thank you. Yeah, you can find me on these links: Twitter, GitHub, mail. I of course started my website or kind of portfolio thing recently, so you can check that out as well. Like check my other projects on this link. And yeah, I'm open to any questions if you have. Let's have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar, for the wonderful session. It was really amazing. I hope every participant here have got something new to learn today. So guys,
Thank you.
questions are welcome. You can ask. Tushar is here for you. There is one question if you can see here.
Mhm. Let me also share this. Uh,
Yeah, guys,
wait a
and
second.
all the recordings and slides will be shared. Please be follow our Twitter handle. We will update all the links and slides.
I'll share this link. I need some, you can check out this repository that I shared. Now I'll go through the questions. Mhm. Do we have to set the rate limit on API or server? So essentially, it's the server that is hosting the API, and you have to set the rate limit there. Uh, Most of the frameworks that allow you to develop APIs come with a default rate limit, which sometimes the developer removes, for testing purposes. So, there are certain teams in a project that have to test the project: QA team, security team, development team. So sometimes QA has to, test the API in a real world scenario, or maybe do a stress test. So sometimes they remove the rate limit for their convenience and then forget about it. So that's where the problem comes in. But essentially, an API would be hosted on a server, and that's where you set the rate limit. I hope that answers your question, Smith Shaha. Uh, what are the different types of APIs like REST, SOAP, GraphQL? Uh, so you are right. There is a REST API that stands for representational state transfer. HTTP, of course, is a stateless protocol, and when you have to transfer or maintain a state, I think that's something related to it. REST APIs. SOAP stands for simple. I forgot what SOAP stands for, but it's basically Object Access Protocol or something. And in SOAP APIs, you basically use a different kind of data standardization, or uh, data. What do we say? You represent the data in a different way, that is in XML and not in JSON. So that's where SOAP API comes in. GraphQL is also something. It's a very new thing, and also a very popular kind of API, GraphQL. But I think it's more of a framework which allows, or yeah, I would say it's a framework which also allows an API to, access some data. It's a query language, but it also provides an API. So that's also one type of API, you can say. Uh, um, there are certain more categories. Some cloud APIs are there, like which provide you some metadata, which are sometimes exploited through SSRF. Okay. So yeah, there are a lot of kind, but I think primarily what you mentioned, REST, so GraphQL, these are there like popular. I would not say these are categories, or again, like GraphQL is a framework kind of thing, while the REST and SOAP is kind of a classification thing. So yes. Is Bola same as IDOR? Hmm. That's an interesting question. I think uh, I think yes and no both. I think IDOR would come under the Bola category, like broken object level authorization is would be a category, and insecure direct object reference. But I think yes too. I mean, it's a very gray area. Even I don't know. A lot of people write IDOR as a category, and a lot of people write IDOR as a vulnerability. So it's a category and a vulnerability both. Both can come under each other. Uh, but yeah, I think yeah. Hmm, what are the different types of APIs? Is there any automation for API testing like OWASP ZAP? Yes, I think there is an automation. There can be an automation in OWASP ZAP. What you can do is, I think, write ZAP scripts. I'm not very sure. I have not used, to be honest, OWASP ZAP, but I think it's a very good project by OWASP, and everyone should check it out. And there can be an automation up to a certain extent. Like I mentioned, the dast engines that we see, or the scanners that we see till now, have been developed or enhanced or improved with respect to the web applications rather than APIs. So like testing APIs, of course, requires a different context. OWASPs, so yeah, I think you can do it, but have, uh, you know it would involve some tweaking of the tool. WSDL file. uh, WSDL, web services. uh, yeah, I think you can call web service as a API as well. So essentially, I think what people do is they call SOAP API as a web service and REST API as the APIs. I'm not sure again, but there are a lot of jargons, terminologies, and whatnot. People call this that, and that is this. I don't know, but yeah, WSDL file is something which documents the API calls for a SOAP API. So it would be an analogy would be a WSDL file and a Postman project. So like it's SOAP API and REST API. It would be like WSDL file and Postman project, maybe. Can we put that in Postman for it? If we have a SOAP collection, can we open that in Postman for API pentest? And also the API uses authentication mechanism like ESG certificate and app certificate. Can you please guide approach on this? Okay. So I'm not sure which of my screen is visible. Uh,
Yes, screen is visible. Yes.
which one is it the slide one?
Yes, slide one.
Okay. So let me show you, like, I'm not sure. In SOAP UI, it's a bit different. Like I said, in Postman, it's a very comprehensive tool, and you can get it. So when a client or the customer provides you a certificate, you can easily, you know, add it here. So you can add your Burpsuit CA certificate in here so that the traffic flow is good, and the Postman does not sense there is a Burpsuit in between, and if it's not allowing you to make the request. You can add the client provided certificate here, all the files. But but when you add those certificates provided by the client here, and when you add the proxy as Burpsuit, the Burpsuit won't send the certificates automatically provided by the client, because Burpsuit is a proxy. It does not know what Postman is sending as a part of certificate. So what you have to do additionally is you have to go to user options or project options and go to TLS and add a client TLS certificate here explicitly again. So here you will mention the customer, customer domain, customer.com, let's say, and then again add the certificate type and add the certificate and password here. So this will allow Burpsuit to, attach the certificate provided by the customer along with the request that you are sending from Postman. So you have to add the certificate here, as well as add the certificate here in Burpsuit. So that would allow you to seamlessly test the customer APIs. But again, I think to answer the question, we cannot, I think, open the SOAP collection in Postman unless you convert it somehow. But the conversion is not a standard way, or you may not want to upload that sensitive collection file onto internet for a online converter, so that would expose the sensitive data from the collection. So again, it's not advised. It's better to test or ask customer whatever uh, according to your preferences. So that's the key. Thank you so much. Another resources on API top 10. So I think there was one in my slide. If I go back, it's Mind API. Mind API is a good repository for API security. Then Awesome API security is another repository containing some nice stuff or resources related to APIs. Everything is there. On Mind API also, there are a lot of things. I'll just go to Mind. Yeah, so you can check these two repositories or links. It's a great collection of resources for learning API security. You can check it out. What are XML and JSON APIs? Again, it's not like necessary that if I am accepting data in XML, my API has to be SOAP. I don't know exactly the definition of a SOAP API, and it can vary, and the definition can be subjective. Like I can make VAPI accept data in XML as well, but would that make the API as a SOAP and not a REST? So that's a bit different on what is REST and what is SOAP. But of course, I can allow the VAPI or my API to accept XML or JSON. So XML and JSON would not be an API. Those are just the means of representing the data. So JSON is a form of representing the data, and XML again is a form of representing the data. Can you share more resources to learn about API security? So yeah, these two links are very good. Mind API and Awesome API Security. There are certain newsletters like apisecurity.io as well, which you can check, by the way. Again, like they mentioned VAPI in the issue 69. So you can check this website. They post a lot of stuff about API security. What is your methodology to hunt for API bugs? Uh, Sadly, I left bug bounty hunting a long time ago. I focus more on development these days, and yeah, it's a bit, it gets you very exhausted, the bug hunting thing. And maybe some days, some later time, I'll resume it. But there is no certain methodology that I use. There is no methodology for me. I just go for the target, do whatever I feel like. Okay. If token that we received is a combined with salt, if token that we received is combined with salt, we don't have salt, then what we can do in this? Can we combined with salt? Okay. So I'm not sure what is combined with salt. So do you mean, so in JWT, there are two practices that we use. One is, one is a symmetric encryption. I'm not sure if the spelling is correct. And one is asymmetric encryption. Where in symmetric encryption, what we do is we use in the type itself, you can see. So if I go here in the decoder, you can see the type. Wait a second. So in the type, oh sorry, I changed it to none, but in the algorithm you could have seen that it was HS256. So HS256 is a symmetric encryption algorithm, whereas RS256 is a asymmetric encryption algorithm, which means in HS256 we use a single secret key, which can be up to a 256 bit of length. So I would use that key to encrypt all this information, and this key can be brute forced using some tool like jwt tool.py. JWT tool is there, which can help you allow you to brute force this key. But in cases where the algorithm is RS256, so in place of this secret there is a public key, and there is a key pair involved. There is not just one secret, there is one public key and there is one private key. So it gets a bit hard on that part, but still there are some misconfigurations related to asymmetric key encryption, like here in the tool, key confusion attack, etc. I am a bit rusty about those attacks, but I don't remember exactly. You can check it out, it's there on the internet. I think we don't have any more questions. Uh, do we have any questions? Like more?
I think this one, sir, how can I get API documentation or SOAP file by Vishal?
So API documentation, it's generally provided by the developers to you. Like, since let's say I'm hosting this VAPI project, I am providing this as a part of repository, as a collection in the resources folder. So you have to ask. It's not like magically, hosted somewhere. Sometimes it is there. So for web services, sometimes what happens is, in a web service like a.com/web service, you can just add a question mark WSDL and you will get the web service definition file, which you can say it's a documentation, but it's not like a whole documentation. You have to have ask the developer about the documentation. So for VAPI, I have hosted it in /VAPI endpoint. So this can also be called as a documentation. This Postman project can also be called as a documentation. It just it depends on what you want. If you want a good explanation, like something like a PDF, you can always ask the developer. But if you want something like a project kind of thing, then also I think you'll have to ask the developer. I hope that answers the question. Which precautions we take at the time of API testing? Interesting. I think we should not test. I think as a penetration tester or security tester, we should we should not test it directly on the production servers. We should make sure we have the necessary access. We have all the user level. We have different set of users. We should also make sure our requests are throttled, and at the same time they are not throttled, to observe both scenarios, like how API would act in both of the scenarios. But like I said, mostly it's you don't do it on production, you do it on staging or maybe a development instance. So that is something that precaution that we take. And yeah, I think throttling is necessary. We should throttle our request, like maybe 4 or 5 requests per 5 seconds, 20 seconds, I don't know. It depends on programs to programs, if bug bounty is something that you are talking about. All right. I think thanks for JWT token. Start making a CTF on tag me. It helped me to make a first user flag. That's good, Omkar. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I don't have much questions. There was one questions like want to make a college project in cybersecurity. So I would say I would not limit you to making a project in API security. There are a lot of options available. There are a lot of domains available in cybersecurity. It's not just penetration testing, web application security. There is SOC, there is offensive, defensive categorization, there is forensics and whatnot. So it's up to you what kind of project you want to do. If you are good in development, you can certainly go for anything, like maybe a tool related to some security. It can be a defensive tool, it can be an offensive tool, it can be a tool like VPI or some platform which will help someone learn something. So it's up to you what kind of project you want to do. Yeah. All right, I think that's all. If anyone has any like more questions, they can maybe reach out to me. I have the links here like mentioned. You can reach out to me always. Thank you.
I think lots of questions today. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then we will end the session now. Thank you guys for attending the session, and thank you, Tushar, for giving such a wonderful session. Anything from
Thank-
Pramod, if you want to say anything? Okay, okay, Pramod, thank you. Okay, then we will end the session now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.